And we're here with Tom Steffen now. Tom at Biola University, Intercultural Studies. How do you see, Tom, orality impacting theological education and training of leaders?
One of the things I think that I've seen in the orality movement, which is now a little more than 30 years old, is a move from just the genre of story to a much broader application of it to include proverbs and many other genres in orality, and making it multisensory and stuff like that, like for literacy and not literacy, for liturgy and for dance and for song and for all the various things that get us into worship. One of the things I think that I'll put it on the formal level first and then maybe move it to the non-formal level. The formal level, it's interesting that when you think of the curriculum and how it's put together, one of the things that you'll usually study first in the first semester is Old Testament survey, and then New Testament survey in the next semester. So in the first year you get a survey from Genesis through Revelation. What's interesting about that is that the Old Testament is probably about 66% of the Bible, which makes the New Testament about 33% of the Bible, but both get one semester. And I think what we've forgotten in the seminary approach to education, the formal approach, is that the Bible is not a textbook. The Bible is a sacred storybook, which has a beginning, a middle, and an end. And therefore, the people who are coming into this to study, and especially now when you think of postmoderns, and if you think of the U.S., that don't have a background, many of them don't have a background in understanding what the Bible's all about, they're coming in there and all of a sudden they get a semester of 2/3 of the Bible and a semester of 1/3 of the Bible, and they're supposed to put it all together. Maybe the prof does, maybe the prof doesn't. Because what happens on many of the survey courses is they get into all the nuances of favorite books, and then you forget that this all tied together, it's all one story. It gets lost as a sacred story. And it's interesting that Trinity Seminary decided that they need to put a course together in the first semester that goes from Genesis through Revelation to try to capture, to get the meta-narrative caught so that all the other courses then can have a foundation from which to tag back to.
And so what do you mean by the meta-narrative?
The meta-narrative would be an understanding of what is the theme of the Bible, basically. So what's the theme of the Bible? And it's got a couple of sentences,
okay,
putting it all together. And everything else, then all the other courses would be then how do those tie back into that theme of the Bible.
Can you tell me, give me an illustration of a person that you have had in training in some of your classes, whatever, of how that's made a difference in how they've learned the story, how they've taught themselves the story.
Yeah. I think one of the comments that was put on a paper and sent in on a reflection paper was that he said, and his seminary student said, and he was a male, maybe it's because of all the linear propositional abstract concepts that have been forced down my throat that I have somehow forgot the great God behind all these stories that are in Scripture. And that has impacted my spirituality. Oh,
that's a big statement.
It was like, that is a PowerPoint slide that every one of those students in the next class will see.
That's
that
great.
Quote. Yeah, it's very powerful. It gets lost in the abstract, unevent, non-concrete, non-earthy ideas.
So this is really changing the way
it gives
your
a
teaching and the whole
different
curriculum is
perspective
taught
of Scripture.
Sure.
Yeah? It changes your perspective of Scripture. And I think that's one of the things you have to ask. How do you view Scripture? And I can trace through my life how I viewed it when I was a young child, a teenager, was a rule book for me. And then as I went to Bible school, and then my Bible training, it was a textbook. And then working among the Ifugao in the Philippines, it became a storybook. And then I started getting a whole different perspective of how you view it and how the implications that has for ongoing life, for you personally, and then for those who you are working with.
Thanks for your input. We really appreciate it.
Welcome.
And don't want you to miss any more of your session.